But then I told my girlfriend about it and she was like, "Oh my God, you met Enoch." And I was like, "What?" She was like, "Enoch, I guarantee you that's who it was." And that made me, I got the book about Enoch, but I haven't read it yet. So I don't know. To me, he looked like an alien and told me, well, he didn't say I'm an alien, but
He looked like an alien, and he told me, "Hey, I'm an
and he
alien."
said
Oh.
I'm alien, so I'm an alien.
And now for something completely different.
In a world where everyone seems to have the answers, two people ask questions. Welcome to the Woo-Woo Crew.
We have moved on up to the east side with technology.
Right? We're doing big things.
It's pretty cool, and it took us a second to get the show rolling, but now we're in the show, and so and it's so cool because this is different, and it's going to take me some time to like adjust to like how this podcast is different from my podcast.
Yeah.
Because like I think on my podcast, like it's more interview style, like there's interview style podcast, and then there's more like relaxed, we're just talking podcasts,
Yeah.
and this is more relaxed, we're just talking podcasts. But because I wear the interview hat so much, it's like, But I found this book.
No, you didn't. I wrote that.
Oh, okay. Split personality.
Just quickly
Have you heard
before
of
we
this?
did this. No, it looks freaking amazing.
Well, and I was trying to find the page because I was going to read it, but oh yeah, that's it. Here it is. So I'm just going to read this part. Let's see. This guy is a scientist that noticed. I don't know exactly what kind of scientist he is. It's mentioned, but I'm not thinking about it. But when he was being a full-blown scientist, when he saw the placebo effect, he was like, "Hey, this means that there's something deeper." But oftentimes, people in that position back in the day, it's like, that's quackery. Get out of here.
Yes.
That's nonsense. And so anyhow,
Still today as well, yes.
yeah, right. And so he's one of the people that was like, fuck all this shit. I'm going to go my own route. And he started like writing books on this stuff. And it's really, really cool because, coming from the like analytical side of things, seeing this, So to give you like a little context, like the chapters in it, I'm just going to just real quick, just give you a couple of them. So it's like mind over matter, meditation, trapped and released emotion, nature, Reiki, crystals, how perception shapes your reality, consciousness, is it telepathy? Telepathy.
Oh, yes.
Telepathy.
It's the telepathy.
And then you're going to like this, distant healing. And so this is why I'm bringing this up. I'm going to read this one little line. So he's saying some stuff, blah, blah, blah. I draw on Buddhist philosophy, the science of color psychology, and even diamagnetic and paramagnetic properties of these mineral stones. That's why I like reading this stuff. I'm like, wait, what the fuck are those words? And then I go back.
I
know. In the latter part of the book, I delve into telepathy.
Telepathy.
In the latter part of the book, I dive into telepathy. And why am I having such a challenging time with it?
I don't know, but it's great. It's like my stepdad. He can't say aluminum. Telepathy.
Telepathy.
It's because, yeah, you want to say telephone, so it's trying to come out like that.
No, it's weird. I don't read that word a lot. Telepathy. Okay. In the latter part of the book, I delve into telepathy, distant healing, and prayer. Although these phenomena are often dismissed as pseudoscience, there is in fact a large amount of statistical evidence to support them, although it's not widely known to the general public. This next part I wanted to get your opinion on, though. As we'll discuss, one of the key factors in the way they work is emotional connection. And then it says EEG and MRI studies show that the more emotionally connected two people are, the stronger any effects tend to be. Now, I think he's kind of lumping in telepathy distance healing, and prayer all in this same thing. But yeah, I
Okay.
want to notice. I heard you kind of go,
Yeah, because I've noticed now my heart has to be open for me to do a healing. And so a lot of times it sounds strange, but okay, so when I go into trance and I'm able to connect with someone, as soon as I connect to them, I keep myself open and I that's why I ask like what are your dominant feelings today because if you're feeling anxious or doubtful, I feel that. And I'm not sure if it's yours or mine. But if you've told me I'm feeling that, then I can go, "Oh, okay, let that go. It's not you." And just basically like from anyone I've ever talked to that does distance, it's so much harder when you are emotionally attached because you're trying so hard to fix them as opposed to just doing it. So
so I
that's
wonder
how it
if
is
it's like
for me.
I wonder if it's like like it's a deeper level of that, right? Like if there's emotional attachment where, like, say for you, if you were trying to do this for your husband or something like that, there's this underlying big emotional attachment there, and you want him to be feeling better, and so there's that. But what if it's like the love without attachment version, right? You know what I'm saying? Does that
No,
make
for
sense?
sure. Because that's how, yes, because with every trance I go into, I can feel the person's soul to the point that I'm crying because it's so beautiful. And I just wish they could see how beautiful they are. Like, so I 100% feel that. But I think the other component too, because I've done healings on family members and I've tried on him a gajillion times, never works. I
Mhm.
also think it's hard for someone you're really close to also believe that you can do this. So with
Mhm.
strangers, there's none of those preconceived notions. There's none of that stuff. They tell me what's hurting inside, and then I go into trance and I can like physically and emotionally feel what they're feeling
Mhm.
and then feel the compassion. Now I know my heart's open because you have to be a hollow bone. I can't be Heather. I can't be Ravenna. I have to be no one.
I get that. So let's say that there's some lady in your world that's a nice lady, and you guys both like to talk about woo woo stuff here and there, but it's really not based on that. It's just a good friendship. She's a good person,
Super
and
easy.
you want to do a distance healing for her, but you're not like focused on the outcome of it in terms of, like, it's not about her feeling better. I don't know how to. I'm really having a hard time. Oof, I'm having a challenging time. Not a hard time. Having a challenging time framing this. And I think that part of this is because the dynamic of this recording is way different than the preceding ones. And it almost
Uh,
feels like we're actually on a show. Whereas, well, fuck, we are. We're on the woo woo
yeah,
show. But anyhow, you know what I mean? Like the normal way that I do all of my calls has historically been in Google Meets, and now all of a sudden it's like,
oh
then
yeah,
my over here, and then there's stuff going on. Where am I?
totally.
How was I going to frame that? If you have
Maybe
anything to
like so for me in that instance, I feel like it would be much easier. I think it's just my kids and my husband. When it's your kids, like you get this irrational emotional response that you usually don't
yeah, because it's
have.
closer to you. Like you want to help fix their thing because of
Yes.
how close they are to you. I think that that's where I was trying to get, but then I just lost it.
So I
Or
can absolutely do it and I've done it. Um I was the guy was in Florida actually, in the hospital and they were going to shock his heart cuz he was having palpitations and they didn't know what else to do and I was like, "So they're going to shock it?" No. And so I sent him one while he was asleep and the doctor came in and was like, "Okay, I don't know what the fuck happened, but you're good to go." And he was fine. But I also was able to fully tap in so I could feel why he was having heart palpitations and I discussed it without trying to get too deep because I knew he had relapsed and that he was just going in on himself about it and it just caused stress to build up. And so I
yeah,
mentioned a little bit and then he kind of opened up to me cuz I I think people get scared and they think I can read minds and I can't, but I can feel your emotions and having been in that literal same position before, I knew what he was feeling.
yeah. So even though I'm slowly but surely trying to transition out of. Did you hear that?
Oh, is your laundry ready?
Yeah. I was curious if that came through or not. That's pretty funny. Um, but anyhow, yeah, the normal route of me being like, there's a pause and like, well, blah blah blah. Like, it's just how I am. But it'll shift over time. But
I
that
know.
being, I think that it would be cool to kind of talk about your process of like coming from being someone who is very analytical, and then shifting into where you are now, but more specifically, like what that looked like for you. Like you came from a space of where your headset was real reality, right?
Yeah,
And then
yeah.
all of a sudden, there's a shift, and here's this whole world that you had never seen before. I guess first and foremost, was that like incredibly daunting for you, or what?
No, it's really, I'm smiling because you're using your telepathy, mister. As I took a bath last night, I was sitting in the bath and I'm like, oh, what do we want to talk about tomorrow? And I had this like really intense feeling of like, you need to talk about and really explain why and how your abilities came to be. Like, that was it came
So,
in strong
real
and
quick.
hard.
Real quick, I have to quote my buddy Tiger Singleton, who I did a podcast with on my podcast, and he said, and I'm paraphrasing, but the more that you think it's you doing you and not the universe doing you, the more resistant of an experience you're going to have, right? So it's kind of
Yeah.
talking into the where do thoughts actually come from? Where's the actual source of them, right? So I'm seeing this and get a little bit of tinglies right now. This is just the universe aligned in this way. It's bananas, but yeah,
Oh,
I love that.
100%. And then with I have very strong, so my only psychic ability that is trash, it's like 10%, is the telekinesis, which sucks because I just want to be able to like close the door at night without having to get up. That would be so great. But I can't.
So
But
well, we can't
my
we
now
can't
I'm
just
saying it,
we,
telepathy.
we can't just breeze past that though. Tell me more about the telekinesis stuff for you.
Well, that was so I did this there's a woman that has she's a psychic and a psychic medium. She had this whole test on her website and so I took it to find out what my dominant clair is, your dominant psychic ability so that you can practice that the most. But just like everything else that I've ever taken, I end up being everything. So that I'm like, which sounds cool in theory, but when you're trying to practice one thing to be good at the one thing, so I have the clear cognizance so I can see I know if things are going to happen. I know when death will happen. I know when births will happen. Like I know when people are pregnant and sometimes they don't even know. I know when people are going to pass
But
and
not
not like
not every single, huh?
no, but like my dentist, someone came through and gave her a message while I was laying in the chair. She found out 2 days prior. Only her and her husband knew she was pregnant. Um but I just was like, I have to say something because like I get it's called an impression. So when I do hear things, it sounds like your thoughts. It doesn't sound like another voice. Sometimes it does. And that's why I don't ever like labeling who's talking to me because I don't know. I just
Mhm.
get an impression like, but it's a psychic one. So I got a psychic impression for her, and it was an older woman with, and it's only ever from here up. They only ever show from here up. I don't know why. But she was like this, like so excited. And I immediately, so what I got from that is she's pregnant. And so I asked her, and I got three answers. It was like, if she's trying to get pregnant, it's going to happen, or she already is. And there was a question that she was ruminating on, and the answer was yes, everything is fine. And then there was a third one, but I can't remember. And that was why I had to tell her immediately, it'll start going away like a dream. And
Mm.
when I told her, she's got her mask on, and she was like, because I was like, have you been trying to get pregnant? And her eyes get huge because she hasn't told anyone in the office. And so she walked out of the room and like cried and came back, which she told me later. But at my next appointment, she was like, yeah, I had just found out 2 days before that. And we were trying to figure out if we wanted to tell people or not. And because a lot of times people wait till after 14 weeks. Yeah. And so that's why I told her yes, because he would be fine. And his name's Baby Jack, and I get to see pictures of him all the time.
That's so cool. I love
But
that.
yeah, it's only like people that are close to me.
I really think that this is beautiful. The universe put us in this situation where we are going to talk more about this stuff. And
It
there's a
is really cool.
whether we get to it today or the next time or whatever, I definitely want to go down the road of listening to or hearing more about your experiences with the paranormal, like the shit you've seen and stuff. But I want
Totally.
to go to, yeah, when you first realized that there's a deeper aspect of yourself, like,
Hmm.
like, you know,
It's gonna get a little bit emotional, but I'll do good
oh, okay.
because it
You know,
literally changed my entire life.
I know that before that, there was the indulgence with particular stimuli.
I was an I was an addict to opiates for over a decade.
Right. So we know that part.
Hmm.
Did this come in? Because I know we loosely talked about this, but not in this context. So whatever. Um, did this come in like in the midst of you being in that, or was it after? Because no, I remember a little bit now. You were in your closet, and it was like a moment of time where you're like, "Fuck, just give me a sign." So you were still in it then.
Yeah, I was in it, but I had also just attempted to take my life
Mm-hmm.
and decided not to because people intervened that appeared like literally out of nowhere. A police officer knocked on my car window and saw the gun in my hand, and I was just parked at a park at night, and I didn't care. And normally I'd be like, "Oh gosh, I'm gonna be in trouble," but I rolled the window down just a little bit, and I was like, "Yep." And he was like, "Hey, how's it going there?" And I was like, "It's going." And he was like, "Okay, you want to go ahead and put that up for me?" And I was like, "Sure." So I put it back in the glove box, and then weirdly enough, he just kind of like left. He was like, "Okay, well, I want you to just be safe and have a good night." And I was like, "Okay, thanks." But I saw that there was an ambulance that, they'll park in random places.
Mm-hmm.
And I still had Colorado license plates at the time. So this EMT comes up to the passenger side of the car, taps on it, and I'm like, "Oh my God." So I roll down the window, and he was like, "Hey," doing the small talk, like, "Please don't off yourself," kind of thing. He was like, "Hey, I saw you had Colorado license plates. I'm from Colorado." And I was like, "Oh, cool." And I'm super annoyed. I just want this to be over. And then he looks in the back seat and he said, "If I was the one that had to find you here and saw those two car seats in the back, I would have been devastated." And I
Mm-hmm.
lost it. And I immediately drove home. Walk upstairs, I go in the closet, and that was when I dropped to my knees and I surrendered. I was like, I didn't know at the time I was surrendering, but I put my arms up and I'm like, "I can't do it. I cannot do this. Like, if there's anyone out there, please help me." And it was just this immediate, like as if someone had this big warm bucket of water and poured it all over my body. So it wasn't even like a in my head experience. I like physically felt this love wash over me, and I just burst into tears because I'm like, "How can you love me? Like, I've debated about you and against you and turned from you, and all I kept hearing was, 'I've never left. I love you. I love you.'" Like, it was just unbelievable. And from
So
that moment,
when you say you heard that, like,
yeah.
did you hear a voice say something like that?
Yeah, but it doesn't come from outside your head. It's on the inside. And in that one was more of like the thought form, but I knew I wasn't saying that to myself,
Uh-huh, uh-huh. Okay. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
especially because at the time that is certainly not how I spoke to myself. Um,
Yeah.
and then it just all these synchronicities began happening. So I asked for the help, and then I started getting it.
Mm-hmm.
I kept, and that was, it became my sacred place where I still do my work is in the closet because I could always be like completely alone. I can go in my room, into the bathroom, into the closet. So there's like three doors between me and the family because I had issues with even just crying in front of people. I didn't like doing that. Still
Mm-hmm.
not the best at it. So I could go in there when I would get, because during my awakening after the surrender part, well, then I had to go through 30 days of withdrawal. It's usually like 2 weeks, but it was 30 days of the like bug crawly feeling, can't sleep, cold sweats,
Mm-hmm.
awful.
So just real quick
And
on when you first were in the closet after the night leaving the paramedic scenario and all that coming back, were you high?
no, I didn't have
Okay.
any. I would have loved
Okay.
to have been, but no.
So is that something where like if you don't have it, sometimes it can trigger like,
No.
those thoughts and stuff, or no? It's not that.
Um, Benzos can cause hallucinations, but getting off of opiates, I don't know of anyone that would have hallucinations. It just
No.
sucks.
Not that part. I mean, like you not having any. Do you think that that contributed to your state of being where you were entertaining taking yourself out because you didn't have any, so you weren't
No,
listening?
because I could have gotten more, but I was
Uh-huh.
trying to quit. And so I had bought enough to like taper down for a week. And that was the
Uh-huh.
plan, but then took them in 2 days anyways. And I realized like you literally have no self control. Like you cannot stop doing
Right.
this on your own. And
Very
that
true.
was what led to what happened that night.
And so on and so forth. Right. Gotcha. And then after that moment, you obviously, I'm assuming you never touched the stuff.
Never again.
Okay. And so then it started. There was like synchronicities that were happening, and
Oh
like,
my gosh. Yeah.
what was the
So,
first? What was the first thing that happened that was like, what the fuck?
oh geez. Well, okay, I was fishing at the park. This is a big what the fuck one. Fishing at the park. I love fishing and I do it by myself because no
I
one else
remember
wants.
this story actually, but I
Oh
want
yeah,
you
when I heard something and it was like
to
get out. That was a man's voice.
do the whole thing though for the people
Okay.
because I
So
think that
I'm
was either
fishing.
a competition to you or it was on there, so you do it.
Yeah, it was I'm fishing at the park and there's nobody there. It's probably 9:30, 10 o'clock. And at the pond is the very back of the park. And so there's lights over a little bit further back, but it's pretty dark around the pond. I keep looking around just to be safe. Like I'm obviously alone, so I'm just checking, making sure there's not anyone coming up on me. But then I start noticing I'm like in hindsight, I realize I kept looking a lot. And we do that when we're being watched. But at the time, that was not going through my head. At the time, I just saw, like, I looked up and I see an owl and I was like, cool. And it flew off. And then I saw a huge snake and I'm like, that's creepy. So I started getting creepy vibes, but I just kept casting because I'm like, one more, one more. And then I hear, you need, like, or no, get out. But it sounds like a thought. And I was like, that's weird. And it's crazy how we just completely ignore it because it still kind of was in a man's voice. It said it again. And I was like, what is the deal? Looking around, nothing. And then it was get out, like get out now. And it was loud. And I just was like, what the fuck? And I grabbed my tackle box and I was like, you're nope, not doing it. And the next morning, a 16-year-old girl on the news had gone missing from a house in the backyard, like just, I would say 400 yards away from me, just right there.
Yeah,
So someone was looking out.
dude. So that's in that moment. You're like now, if you got that, you'd probably be like, okay, I'm gonna go ahead and move on. But you were still like kind of in the old patterns a little bit, and so you're like, I don't know what the fuck this is. But then it just got so loud.
Yeah, I wasn't in any way like at the point of even touching my woo-woo stuff. Like I was just fishing. It was crazy.
Is there anything else that you feel compelled to share? Because I'm curious, like how the distance healing came into play. But I would love to hear anything that you want to share in this realm.
Yeah, I mean it honestly like it's really interesting because everything happened exactly like it went in its own order. I didn't seek anything out. Everything would just happen. So like I would happen to get a book on, it said coincidences on the spine. And I've tried to find the same book and I can't find it. I have the book, Deepak Chopra, but I can't find the one that I saw in the library because the only reason I grabbed it was it said coincidences. And I'm like, I like coincidences. And I read it and it was like, it blew my face off. So that was the first time I had an understanding, a different understanding from everything I'd been taught previously of how the universe actually works. And I found that fascinating. And my husband happened to have he got me like a yoga class. And I was like, I don't do yoga. That's dumb. That's like what my mom does. But you paid for it, whatever, I'll go. And I ended up telling the teacher afterwards, I was like, oh, I felt like I was high. That was awesome. And she was like, well, you were meditating. And I was like, no, I don't do that. And she was like, yeah, that's what yoga is. So I kept going for a while until I basically learned enough moves to just do all my yoga at home. And so the yoga at home led to me doing, I didn't call it meditation, I called it brain training. So I would go in the closet every day for 20 minutes and like listen to music, the guided meditation thing, except it wasn't guided, it was just music. And I was having these insane transcendental meditations where it, after probably about a month, I would immediately go into meditation, and then my head would fall back, like as if it felt like someone was putting a finger on my head and pushing it back. And I would come out of the closet and I tell my husband, like, oh my gosh, it's like I don't know, like downloading information from the universe or something. And so he was like, cool. He's like brushing his teeth and I'm Googling it. And there's all these other people like using that term and saying the same stuff. And I was like, oh, so that was really cool to me. And it literally
What
everything on downloading, because that's
using the
literally
term?
what, yeah, like I thought that's what it was the only way I could describe how it felt physically.
Mhm.
And then come to find out like people are throwing it around like super cash. And I was like, oh, this is a real thing. And those downloads kept happening. I could feel literally physically feel my brain rewiring. I
Mhm.
It was really cool and amazing. And I haven't gotten any of that since the beginning, but I think that's just how it was meant to be. Um,
Mhm.
which is difficult because then you think like it's going to be like this all the time, and then all of a sudden one day you're just meditating. There's not anything cool or crazy happening, but that's
Uh,
part of the process. So like with the distance healing, that ended up coming much later. So that's the past 2 years. I'm a math dyslexic and I have ADHD, which I think both of those things, dyslexia, ADHD, a lot of those things that we're all born with now, it's not because it's a disease. It's like just part of being a sensitive, like
mhm.
I call people sensitives that I assume are highly psychic. I
Mhm.
know we're all psychic, but unless you practice it, or, like there's basketball players and Michael Jordan. So like you're going to have your own specific thing, and some people are fantastic at it and some are meh. And I would say I'm still on the meh scale, except with the distance healing. I don't even really remember how I tried it. I had been getting Reiki done on myself, and I thought it was really cool. That's right. And in 2020, which was like one of my favorite years ever, because it was like stay home and do nothing. Okay. So I used that whole year to just go in, meditate all the time. Like I would be in the garden, or yeah, in my garden for 8 hours a day, every day. Just
Beautiful, beautiful.
just being. It was so amazing. And at the time I would be getting downloads in the garden, and after this one Reiki session, I channeled. I would channel a lot in the closet, and I didn't really understand what I was doing. I was just talking out loud, but it was always really wise and loving kind information coming out. So I just kept going with it. And after I had heard Abraham Hicks, I was like, oh, I'm channeling. So I don't know what I'm channeling or who. Maybe it's just my soul. Maybe I don't know. But
So let's go there for one quick second. So when those channeling situations happen, is it like you're sitting in the closet and you kind of start talking to yourself because you feel like you just want, and then it starts coming out that way, or is it like you're sitting there and then all of a sudden words just start coming
both. So
out?
this was one of the times where words just started coming out. I actually was laying down, just finished a Reiki session, and I see this beautiful green light, but it
Mm-hmm.
was like not like a straight up light, like a fog, but it was green. So I could see color to it. And I'm laying there just looking at it like, wow, that's so beautiful. And not even really going like, what is that? Just thinking, wow, that's pretty. Cause I kind of was assuming my eyes might have been playing tricks on me. And then I just started talking, and then it hit me like I'm saying like really cool stuff. And so I grabbed a pen and paper and started writing it. So I would either write it or record it. And I have a ton of the sessions, and I've never actually re-listened to them. Maybe once I've listened to like one or two, but even my handwriting's completely different. I'll have accents. And I think that we do that to distinguish, okay, this is
Mm-hmm.
you speaking, this is not you speaking. Because
Yeah, but that's
watched other
automatic.
yeah, because I've watched other channelers and they'll also have accents. And I think it's just our something's way of helping us understand like you're not the one doing the talking right now. But
So what do you
I
think?
can
What do you think is the difference between like what because I've been looking a lot more into that. There's the channel or podcast next level soul podcast. I think I might have
mhm.
sent you one of those, and they and maybe not, but he's been interviewing a few different channels, and it seems like it's all like the more I look into it, the more I'm like, yeah, I mean, why not? But my question would be like people like that, like Abraham Hicks and some of those others. It's
Yeah.
like this is the thing that they can just be like, all right, well, hey, give me 1 second and I'll bring them up, and then they just fucking go to it.
Yes. And
You
that
were there.
I haven't really taken the time to practice it. All of these abilities take practice. And it's funny that you mentioned that because I've been wanting to channel because I haven't done it in a long time. And if I want, well, that's also not true. I do it every time I'm in the bath. I channel, my soul starts talking to me because I'll be essentially praying, like just, this is what I'm dealing with, this is what I'm having or what I'm struggling with. And because I'm calling upon all the elements around me, the earth, air, fire, water, especially because I'm laying in a body of water to assist me. And then all of a sudden I'll just start speaking. And it always is like a deeper voice. She always says child. She,
Hmm.
and I've noticed that with a lot of channelers, they usually call you child. And I don't know why. So I don't know if it's like, is it all the same one? Is it
Ooh,
I don't,
I have a theory.
what?
So when you look at like people who have traumatic childhoods and stuff, and then it turns out that now they're a super hard worker and they're building some business, but they're always go go go, and they're never present with themselves, and they're not really spending time, out in nature or dancing or frolicking or whatever. But then when a person like that starts to incorporate that side of themselves more and let go of all the stress and surrender a little more, they have a more free life. And so really it's like my theory is that like we're never not supposed to be children. Like I feel
Right.
like that's the whole thing here. And granted, yeah, there's
Yes.
growth and experience and all the stuff, but we're still fucking kids.
Yes. And we absolutely are still kids. And that's why people like, if we just
Wait, I'm
incorporated,
sorry. I'm sorry. I said, but we're still fucking kids. Just so we
oh,
clarify, everybody,
oh, we
framing of
don't
that,
do that.
the framing of that was, you understand, was an adjective,
Right, right. We
not a
don't do
verb.
children.
It was
No.
not a verb. It was an adjective. I just felt like it was necessary in the moment.
Yeah. Now it's weird. I'm
Now,
kidding.
now it's weird. Everybody would just flown right by it, but
Everyone
because
just was like, that's hilarious. I didn't even pick
yeah,
that one up, and I'm usually so on top of it.
yeah, it's all
My
good.
good, that's what she said
So
jokes.
I forget who it was, but there was somebody that came across that like they help people bring out more of that, the channeling, you know?
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah, well, and that's the other thing. So, me being super skeptical, I would see that I have these abilities, but I'm like, I'm not fucking paying for this class because there's classes for everything. And they're always, you need to go to Sedona, Arizona to learn how to channel for just $6,000. And I'm like, And so something in me and it doesn't mean it doesn't work, but there's something in me that was like, I mean, I almost signed up for countless classes and then just never did it. And I think a part of that was my guide's like, no, just why don't you just do it? Just try doing it yourself. And
Yeah.
if I do actually put forth the effort and I practice, it's like it works. So yeah.
Well, I'm kind of curious, over me being over here on the sidelines. It's like, yeah, do that, do more of that, because I want to see more of that. You know what I mean?
I
Like,
have
get on it.
over 100 voice recordings of channels. And what's sad is I actually threw away a huge bag of handwritten ones because I started feeling really ashamed. Like, what if someone finds these and sees me like talking to myself? So it is what it is. But I was very upset when I was like looking back and I'm like, why did I throw all those away?
Mm-hmm.
But I was
Yeah,
still embarrassed.
I think that that would be really, really cool. And I feel that sometimes I channel, but it's not like that. It's more like when I'm in a flow with a person I'm speaking with, whether it's a
Exactly.
client, cast, or whatever. And it's
Yes.
funny because sometimes I'll be on a fucking roll, man, but then I'll get to a certain point and I'll be like, what was the next thing I was going to say? And
Uh-huh.
it just disconnects. And I'm like, well, anyhow, moving on,
But yeah, but like, or you go back and listen to something and you're like, dude, did I come up with that? Like that was some
come from?
solid. Yeah, I don't think I know you're absolutely channeling in those moments because the same thing will happen to me. And you're just like spitting knowledge and then you're like, what just happened? But
Yeah.
it's flow, you're in flow state.
in my theory is that everybody has the ability to tap into this more and more. It's about clearing out the clutter that most people have, like dormant in their subconscious, etc.
Or even
And
believing that it's a thing. Yeah. I mean,
yeah,
I didn't
yeah,
believe it until I heard the Abraham Hicks audio, and that I actually got scared. It scared the bejesus out of me because it was
yeah,
changing my nature of reality.
yeah.
So yeah.
Well, and this is something that I say quite a bit, but the only reason that I think that people have resistance to it is same as like my former resistance to it was because in my mind, channeling meant like you're just talking, and all of a sudden, like, the message from the aliens is, and it's like some
Oh
kind of
yeah, yeah, yeah. And some people like Bashar can be like that, but he has this incredible, I don't know how many decades he's been doing it, connection. And so like I was able to channel an alien, but I'm pretty sure that it was an accident because I felt like it's a funny story. I literally was just in the twilight zone, like, you're not asleep, you're not awake, which is the
Mhm,
perfect place to be.
mhm,
And I had just finished meditating, and I'm doing like my transcendental meditation. I'm out in the universe, and then all of a sudden I'm just in a spaceship. And I see this alien, and the impression that I got, because they don't speak to you, it's all telepathic,
mhm.
was like, "Ugh, like another one." And so I think I just like accidentally was like, "Hello," and I'm like, "Okay, all right, you can't be here." Super nice. He should, and then like I didn't use words, of course. He didn't use words, but I was thinking to myself, and as I was thinking, he would answer the question.
Hmm.
And so he was like, "My name is Raynoch," and I was like, "Oh my gosh, hi." And he was like, and he started like, he didn't physically touch me, but I was out of the ship very quickly. And so I was like, "I'm so sorry about that. I don't know what happened." And then I guess I thought to myself, like, what do you look like? And so all of a sudden my vision, I see all red, and then I can see him from here up. And he like did like a little like 360 for me so I could see what he looked like. And after I came out of it, I immediately sketched it out, and I still have it. But yeah, his name was, how I picked it up was Raynok. And I Googled it, nothing. I can't find anything on that name. But then I told my girlfriend about it, and she was like, "Oh my God, you met Enoch." And I was like, "What?" She was like, "Enoch, I guarantee you that's who it was." And that made me, I got the book about Enoch, but I haven't read it yet. So I don't know. To me, he looked like an alien and told me, well, he didn't say I'm an alien, but
He looked like an alien, and he told me, "Hey, I'm an
and he
alien."
said,
So,
"I'm alien, so I'm an alien." So whenever she said that, I was like, man, that's kind of cool, because there are entities that'll approach you in whatever way they think you'll be most comfortable with. And if it was just a dude, that would have freaked me out. But because I was into like the Abraham Hicks and like had been watching that stuff, I think maybe, it is a possibility, but it's also possible that it was just because thousands, like hundreds of thousands of people have telepathic conversations with extraterrestrial all the time.
well, obviously you're familiar with the law of one, right? The raw material. Heard of
Mhm.
that? Yeah, I've been reading that a little bit. There's a lot of people that refer to that like on their spiritual walk, because I think that at the core here, on your spiritual walk, you're taking away the parts of previous versions of self that were overly critical and overly analytical and overly concerned about, you know not offending anybody, or nobody thinking I'm crazy, like at a subconscious level. But more you clear that out and cultivate a relationship with yourself, you're like, well, why not? It could be.
Mhm.
Why the fuck not?
Exactly.
More and more science is like, hey, look at all this woo woo shit going on. So,
There's
I'm on
that, and I think it also just helps, like, because spirituality it's a lifestyle, like it's not like I'm going to be spiritual till I'm healed. We're always going to be healing. There's always going to be new traumas and things like that, but when you clear out the main, childhood hardcore stuff, that definitely opens you up a lot more, because you're just not so angry or so sad deep down, even though you didn't realize it. And that allows for that inner child to come out who has the imagination, because to do any psychic work, you have to use your imagination, period.
Yeah,
At least,
yeah.
just to get the ball rolling. And sometimes who knows how much more, but as long as the information received is kind and helpful, then
Yeah.
to me it
It
counts.
it's imagination in itself is something that is highly recommended. Anybody that talks about doing subconscious work or manifesting, whatever it is, but even just people that are just regular people like Tony Robbins, would talk to you about the power of envisioning an idea of the future that excites you without getting
Right.
attached. You know what I mean?
Because
Like,
it's intent. Yeah, like
yeah.
the way I see it is the entire, like, consciousness is intent. It's the intent of source. And
Hmm.
everything is consciousness, everything is intent. The universe is intent. So all magic is basically putting your attention and your awareness on one thing with the intention of a certain outcome. So it's
Hmm.
all just focus and intention, and you can literally do anything. But you have to believe it, because I can say something over and over, but if there's no emotion behind it, then I'm just saying sounds. So
Yeah.
it's got to come from the gut, and that's what takes practice.
Yeah. Everything is centered around belief, but not just conscious belief, but your subconscious belief. So
Well,
if you're something,
understanding who you are, just knowing who you really are. What do you really believe? Why do you think you're here? Like those kinds of things, because there's sacred questions, but I don't like telling people the questions because it's something that should come up on its own when it's your time. But that is one of them, is why am I here? Like what is my purpose of being here? When people start having those thoughts, they're waking up.
yeah,
And I to I always say, to me, because I don't want people to be like, and I guess that's maybe a projection, assuming that people would think that, but
hmm,
I just don't want anyone to ever think anything I say is like, this is the law, because I know I have no copyright on truth. No one does. But my
hmm,
truth, as I know it right now, is we all have these abilities and we're all capable of doing it. And the purpose of our being here is to enjoy the human experience, but for soul growth,
hmm,
to learn from whatever it is we're going through so
yeah,
that our soul can continue growing. Because I believe in reincarnation.
yeah, and learning. It may not be what we would perceive it to be. You could look at one life and be like, okay, that makes sense. Yeah, this guy potentially learned lessons and it contributed to his soul, whatever. But if you're being
Hmm.
analytical, you could look at, all right, well, tell me what lessons this homeless guy learned that,
What?
never did
Oh,
it,
a
whatever.
thousand lessons that he teaches all the people around him every single day. The ones that walk by and look at him in disgust, if they were to go home and sit with themselves and ask why, then they would
Mhm.
get a genuine, profound answer from that. There's also the people that walk by and see empathy and think, I am so grateful for my home. So that one homeless person is changing the world. We are,
Yeah, so
because people,
looking into the broad spectrum of overall consciousness, I'm with that. My going off on a thought tangent here was basically that if we just localize it to the individual, you could
Mhm,
look at it from the bird's eye view perspective and be like, well, what the fuck did he do? But my point is that whenever that person expires, or it could be someone that beats women until he's 30 and then he kills himself,
mhm,
whatever it is. But when he transcends over to the next level of awareness, which is outside of this life, source
right.
consciousness, whatever it is, we don't know exactly how that works. Maybe from that perspective, there is growth in that. Maybe
There
from
is.
that perspective, there is lessons in that, etc. Whatever. So it's like I was basically going there because someone could easily be like, "Well, that's not fucking true." Because what about these people? But my point is that's the
Totally.
perspective of an average human being.
Yeah.
That's it.
I mean, that
It's
was
just
like my perspective. Yeah, that was my perspective a long time ago. I'm like, well, what about babies with cancer? Explain that. We want an explanation for what we consider to be bad, but who are we to even,
yeah,
we get lost in thinking that our labels of good and bad supersede our soul's mission or source's mission or the universe's law. Like and that's just part of the journey too, and that's what alleviates so much of the suffering in our life, is constantly like analyzing and judging when we don't have to. It's just a complete waste of our beautiful energy.
yeah. The root source of opinion is an inner child that thinks that they have to validate themselves by some way because opinion is just like
Mhm.
well, it should be this way, or that's bad, or that's good. But it's like, no, it just is. And then it's on
Mhm.
us what we do with it, you know?
I love that. Exactly. Yes. And I'm going to get a tattoo because I still have to remind myself constantly just accept what is right now.
Hmm.
Because otherwise I still get road rage. I still am like, "Oh, why did this have to happen today?" And it's like, "Well, it did." So you can either be really mad about it or you can go, "This is what it is." And
Yeah.
I have to constantly remind myself of that, but it really and truly is exactly like you said, and it's when you live that way, it's so much easier and it's so
Yeah.
beautiful.
Yeah.
But for sure, and I'm still I mean, before we even started the podcast, I'm like, "Should I wear my hair up?" Like and that's the other part is that was what was difficult too, is when you start realizing you have these abilities, you think, "Well, then I should be better. I'm not
Hmm.
being good enough." I'm still a human. I can't neglect the fact that I'm a human
Hmm.
with a spirit. So
Yeah.
I have to incorporate that and love on that part of me too. And that's when you start doing the shadow work.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's fuck, man. Even if it was like someone that was, massively obese, missing their teeth, and never shaves, but they start channeling, and the messages that are coming through are from love, and it's like healing words,
Yeah.
dude. I mean, it's like it stems to like our own belief in ourselves and what we do with that. And as long as we don't allow other people's projected opinions and society's projected belief of what beautiful is, etc., everybody's fucking beautiful.
Everyone is beautiful and perfect. God,
Yeah.
and that's what I love about doing distance healings. Like I do it for free all the time because I need the practice and because I love it. I get to feel and see someone's soul. And,
Yeah.
they're not all supermodels, but when you see them like that, it just brings you to tears. And it's like, if you could only see the perfection that you are. Oh,
Yeah. That's what my favorite thing that I've said of words, a few words put together that would be a quote. I guess it's a quote of me. I don't know if I got it from somewhere. But is the only thing that's perfect is everything,
hmm.
which is that's challenging for a lot of people. Well, what do you fucking, you mean the fucking, yeah, everything,
Yeah,
you know?
including the murders, including the war, including all of it, because it
Yeah.
all is, and it is what it is. It's
Yeah.
this creation that's unfolding because every person has their own story and the whole butterfly effect. Everything does happen for a reason. And even when it's horrible things, it doesn't mean it's not happening for a reason. Would you throw that out to someone who just lost a child? No.
Yeah,
Because,
of course.
yeah, like we use our common sense, but I still know like it all does happen for a reason.
And I've said this before too, and I think that sometimes on these podcasts, I'm going to feel compelled to like validate, because it's like, just so you guys know, I'm not crazy when I'm saying this stuff. But no, like in order to have the law of polarity, right? Hermetic principles,
Right.
or dualism, right? Like it's an inherent part of fucking everything. And
Mhm.
so, in order to have the vast array of beauty in the world, it would only make sense that there is a vast array of the opposite of beauty. But I say the opposite of beauty instead of a vast array of horror or a vast array of terror, because those are just fucking words. We
Mhm.
get to choose. Well, then why do you say beauty is? Well, because I'm choosing to focus on beauty so that I have more
Correct.
beauty. That's
Exactly, because even just saying those words causes, like, a biological reaction. So
that's it.
using different ones helps. It makes a difference.
That's it. I
It's
got a
so
guy coming
fascinating.
on my other podcast, Dr. John DeMartini, who's been studying, the human behavior as a whole for decades, and the subconscious mind and framing and all this stuff. And I'm just elated to talk to this dude.
Nice.
It ties into all that shit.
Oh my
And
gosh. Yeah, like, I'm always walking around thinking, like or saying, like, "Isn't that fascinating?" Like, the way that our brains work, even when it's working against us, it's
hmm
incredible how powerful it is. Like, it's truly and then when you start learning, really learning about yourself, like, and being fully honest with the stuff that you don't even want to admit to yourself,
Hmm.
it's really beautiful because then it just starts falling away because it doesn't have that power over you anymore. And you're like, what? And you also get blown away. You're like, how did I not see that? Like, that
Yeah.
was so dicky for so long. Like, how did I not see that? But we can lie to ourselves like no one else. It's fascinating.
It's a puzzle.
It's a puzzle. I tell you what, speaking of puzzles, we're on a serious puzzle addiction right now. Like us as a
Oh, that's
family.
fun.
Can't
That's fun.
stop puzzling. Every
Yeah.
day I'm puzzling.
Well, I think that it makes sense. That's what life is. I feel like it's a journey. It's a game. It's a puzzle.
It
And
is. I
you know,
love that.
it can be a really challenging puzzle for you, depending on how you frame shit. So, you know, this is interesting. I'm really, really having fun on this journey, and I think that we did pretty well today, considering technological stuff and getting adjusted to the format. You know,
Yes.
but it's going to be my goal in my mind is that we will get to the space where it's more like the record button hits and it's like, so what are you doing this week? And we just fucking talk. But at
I
the same
completely agree.
it's like I feel like a lot of this stuff is worth, you know, going into. But even that, it may be that, and you're telling me a ghost story, and I go, hey guys, just real quick. I'm not crazy, everybody. All right, carry on. Keep telling your
You
story.
keep talking. This is her story. I love
But
it.
no, like I think the thing for me is that like more and more I'm like with you, like, yeah, maybe when we first started
Totally.
talking a couple of things you said, I'm like, all right, well, we'll see what that is, you know. But like the more I go down my road, the more I'm like, hey, why the fuck not? Why couldn't it be that? And then also going down the rabbit hole of Next Level Soul podcast,
Mm.
which I think I'm saying the name of that right. This guy works so hard. He has someone on his podcast like every fucking day. I feel like he's just pumping them out, and a lot of them are channels, but some of them are scientists and neurophysicists or whatever it is. And his goal, this guy used to be in Hollywood or whatever. His whole goal is like he reached a point with his career where he's like, this isn't right. I need to go within. He started going within, and now it's like his fucking journey to share as much information. And the more you look into it, the more you look into this shit, and then also just self help, the core root of self
Yeah.
help. It fucking makes sense, you know. I
At
don't know.
the end of I love that because you really have got to just start doing like shirts and bumper stickers. I'm telling you, because
Oh yeah.
life is like a puzzle, and like all of you come every time you've got these one-liners, and I'm like, that'd be
Well, I
really
think it was
good.
life's a game, a puzzle, and a journey.
Yes,
Some version of that, maybe.
Make it a shirt. I'm
Maybe I
telling
will.
you.
Well, you know what? We should totally make Woo Woo Crew shirts.
Chris already asked for one, so I was like,
So,
my husband Chris, he had already asked for one, and I was like, we do need merch.
I
And
know,
I was like,
right?
well, I mean, it is our second podcast, but I could order some merch.
It's like, well, we might as well go ahead and get the coffee mugs and everything because we're doing this shit.
Let's get this shit started.
Yeah, I wonder. I guess it's all right to print that. It'd be cool to have someone redo the image and like take the image that we have, that little thing, but like
Yeah.
maybe adjust it slightly. And I think you're fine because your eyes are brown now I realize. Mine are blue though, you know, so it'd be cool to
Oh
have
yeah.
someone go in and like make a couple minor adjustments. But I really like that photo. But even if
I
it's
do
just like
too.
Woo Woo Crew or even just shirts, you know, sometimes you have shirts where it's just the quote. So we could have a shirt on the website that's just that quote of it's a journey, it's a puzzle, whatever. And it may
Mm-hmm.
be WWC. And like, is that wildlife wrestling? What is that? Don't worry about it.
Don't worry about it. You wouldn't know. It's for cool people only. Sorry.
You either know or you don't know, you know.
If you don't know, you can't afford it.
So I think this is a good spot for us to wrap it up today. Next week, we should fucking talk about your ghost experiences. I want to hear some more about that shit.
Okay. I'll write
If you're
some down so that I have because there's yeah.
because
There's
there's
a
a
few.
lot of them.
Yeah.
There's a lot of them.
There's
How
not
often
too many
do you say
like
you
I
have an
didn't
experience
see them.
into
Every day. There's like ghost stuff every single day. And they'll help me with the most random things. Like my toilet was going to be clogged the other day and the light went out in the bathroom. And so I opened the toilet and I was like, oh my gosh, like realizing it was clogged. And then I fixed it and the light came back on. So I was like, hey, good looking out. Appreciate you. Because it's not like the lights don't go completely out, they'll dim and then they'll flicker. So that's how I know it's not just a dead light bulb.
Well, I've been experiencing a lot more flickering
You
of
have?
stuff. Yeah, flickering
That's a
around
big
my house.
deal. It's because they're trying to the biggest thing spirits want us to know is like, I'm here. Like you're not alone. I'm here, and there's
Holding.
another side. And the
Yeah,
first thing they do is electronics because it's the
yeah.
easiest.
This is crazy cool. We're going to talk more
It's so
about my
cool.
experiences and like what's shifted for me and stuff too. But I think
Yes.
for a first run on this new platform, we did good. So woo woo crew out, I guess.
Woo woo.